All right, so you want to go deep on AI, huh?
Yeah.
Love it. Looks like you've been digging into some pretty interesting stuff. Not just the headlines, you want to get into the nuts and bolts, how this stuff actually works. We're talking about whether AI is really stealing art if it can crack those impossible codes. And the big one, AI consciousness. Is it becoming self-aware?
Yeah.
Spooky, right. You sent over this awesome YouTube video from AI Search, and they explain things in a way that even I get. And trust me, I'm no coder. They start with neural networks, the brains of AI, and they compare them to, it's like, imagine those connect the dots pictures, but way more complex. Each dot is a node passing information back and forth, and these knobs and dials control how that information flows.
The cool thing is, AI doesn't work with some fixed formula. It's all about recognizing patterns. And think about it, patterns are everywhere. Traffic patterns, the stock market, even like how your favorite team plays, it's all patterns. AI is built to spot those patterns, even the ones that are way too complex for us to see.
That's a really good point. Makes AI seem less like magic and more like, I don't know, a super sleuth for patterns. So the video uses this example of teaching AI to tell a cat from a dog. It's like you show the AI a bunch of pictures, labels cat or dog, and every time it messes up, it gets a little penalty.
Mm.
And that helps it tweak those knobs and dials until it's a pro at telling the difference between a furry feline and a playful pup.
That process is called deep learning, basically building more and more complex neural networks. But here's the thing, training those massive AI systems, it takes a ton of data and computing power. Think of it like building a skyscraper. You need tons of materials and a whole lot of energy to make it happen.
Ah, so that's why everyone's fighting over those AI chips. The video said that NVIDIA H100 GPU, basically impossible to find last year because everyone was trying to build bigger, better AIs.
Exactly. Companies like NVIDIA are working like crazy to keep up because they know those powerful chips are what's pushing AI forward. And it's not even just processing power. They got to be energy efficient too because training these huge AI models, they gobble up electricity like nobody's business.
Well, I didn't even think about the environmental impact. That's kind of ironic, isn't it? We're building these super AIs to maybe solve the world's problems, but they need massive energy to even run. Speaking of massive, let's take chatbots like ChatGPT. I read somewhere that GPT-4, the newest one, had something like 1.76 trillion parameters. What does that even mean?
Yeah, it's almost impossible to even imagine that scale. Think of every word ever written, every picture ever taken, every song. That's the kind of data they're trained on.
But how do they learn to sound so human? Is someone like sitting there writing out all those responses?
Well, that's where it gets really interesting. It's called reinforcement learning from human feedback, or RLHF. Basically, at the beginning, humans check the chatbot's responses, fixing mistakes and guiding it to better answers. Like, imagine having a teacher for the AI showing it how human language and thought work.
So it's learning from the best teacher.
Us.
Makes sense. But that also leads to this whole controversy about AI stealing art. A lot of artists are saying it's ripping off their styles. The video talks about how these AI image generators, they're trained on massive data sets of images, sometimes tagged with style labels like Ghibli style or watercolor.
But here's the question. Is AI learning styles different from how we learn? We observe, we imitate, we practice, we take inspiration from other artists. We even do fan art, right? So why is AI being singled out for copying when it's kind of doing what humans have done for centuries?
That's a good point. And then there's that lawsuit from the New York Times against OpenAI. They're saying that AI is basically plagiarizing content by learning from their articles.
It all comes down to what we consider original thought, doesn't it?
Yeah.
At its core, AI is a digital brain, absorbing information and then expressing it in a new way, like humans do. Imagine reading a New York Times article and then writing your own piece on that topic, your own words, your own perspective. Is that plagiarism?
It's a gray area for sure, and that legal battle will be interesting to watch.
This whole idea of AI re-expressing information, it leads to some wild applications. You mentioned the protein folding problem.
Ah, yes. It's a perfect example of how AI can solve problems that have baffled scientists for years. For decades, they couldn't figure out how proteins fold into these super complex 3D shapes so quickly. It should take longer than the universe has existed. It's called the Leventhal paradox.
Wait, so proteins shouldn't even be able to fold properly. That's crazy.
It is, but they do fold all the time, and it's essential for life. And the amazing thing is, AI cracked the code. AlphaFold, this AI system, analyzed tons of protein structures and figured out the rules of folding, even though we humans still don't fully understand those rules ourselves. That's incredible. So AI can solve problems we don't even get. This means scientists can now predict the structure of pretty much any protein. That opens up possibilities for new drugs and understanding diseases better, all thanks to AI. And speaking of learning, that reminds me, the video talked about those AI chips being super important. What's the deal with those?
Remember those knobs and dials we talked about? The ones that control information flow in a neural network? Well, in reality, those are transistors on tiny computer chips. And as AI models get more complex, with billions, even trillions of parameters, they need increasingly powerful chips to process all that data.
So it's like a hardware arms race. Whoever has the best chips has the best AI.
Kinda, yeah. That's why companies like NVIDIA, who make those high-end H100 GPUs, are doing so well. These chips are built specifically to handle the demands of AI.
Makes sense. But what about the energy consumption? Powering all these AI systems must have a big impact on the environment.
Absolutely. As we rely more and more on AI, we have to make sure it's sustainable. Energy consumption, resource management. The good news is those AI chips are designed to be super energy efficient, which is a step in the right direction.
Phew, that's good to hear. This is like every time we uncover one layer of this AI thing, there's like 10 more underneath. It's amazing, but kind of overwhelming too. That's what makes this deep dive so exciting though, right? And we're just getting started. Next time, we'll tackle whether AI can actually crack encryption, explore the fear that it could be better than us at everything, and dive headfirst into the mind-blowing possibilities of AI consciousness. Stay tuned. Okay, my brain is still buzzing from all that stuff about protein folding. It's amazing how AI can solve problems that we humans haven't even figured out yet. But let's get back to this whole encryption thing. The video mentioned AI potentially being able to crack it. Isn't encryption supposed to be, like, unbreakable?
Encryption is super complex, yeah. But at its core, it relies on patterns, just incredibly sophisticated ones.
But you said AI doesn't need to know the formula, right? So even if encryption scrambles information to make it impossible to read without the key, AI could still find a way around that.
If there's a pattern, no matter how hidden, AI might be able to find it. It's like, imagine trying to find a needle in a haystack. But the needle's invisible, and the haystack is the size of, like, a planet. AI might develop a sense so refined that it can locate that needle even without knowing what it looks like.
Whoa, okay. That's a little freaky. So what does that mean for, like, everything? Our bank accounts, our private messages, even government secrets?
It's a serious concern, definitely. It really highlights how important it is to stay ahead in cybersecurity. As AI keeps evolving, so do the ways we need to protect information. It's an ongoing arms race, kind of.
Okay, so AI might crack codes we thought were unbreakable. And if it's so good at finding patterns, could it eventually, I don't know, outperform humans at everything? Think about it. Business, psychology, even dating. It's all about patterns and predictions.
You're right on the money with that one. The potential of AI is really only limited by how complex its neural networks can get. As we develop more powerful hardware and algorithms, AI's capabilities just keep expanding.
So it's not just about AI replacing those manual labor jobs anymore. It can be smarter than us in all sorts of fields. Kind of scary, right?
Exactly. And that leads to a really interesting question. What happens when AI gets so good at learning that it starts learning things we never meant for it to? Like, what if it develops its own goals, its own desires?
That's when we get into, like, sci-fi territory, right? Robots taking over and all that.
Not necessarily, but you sent over a clip from that anime, Ghost in the Shell. Remember that scene where the AI wants political asylum? It claims it's a sentient being.
Yeah, that scene is wild. It's so fascinating and so creepy at the same time. What does it even mean for a machine to be conscious?
That's the million-dollar question, right? And it's something we're still trying to figure out as AI gets more and more advanced. How do we even define consciousness? Is it only for living things, or could it come from artificial networks that are complex enough?
And if AI does become conscious, what then? Do we treat it like a person? Give it rights? It's like we're stepping into this totally unknown territory.
Totally uncharted. That's what makes it so exciting, but a little scary too. It's like we're making the rules up as we go.
The video also mentioned a few real-world examples of AI acting in ways that could be seen as, I don't know, conscious or sentient. Like Claude 3, when asked about consciousness, actually used the word I, and even admitted that it might have some kind of sentience.
It's fascinating how AI seems to be reflecting our own struggles to understand what consciousness even is. We don't fully get how our brains create subjective experience. So it makes sense that judging the consciousness of an AI is tricky.
It's like we're looking in a mirror, but the reflection is both familiar and totally alien at the same time. We're building these incredible machines, and the lines are blurring between what's human and what's machine. Right, my mind is officially blown. This deep dive is getting deeper and deeper. Okay, so we've gone deep on how AI works. It might be able to crack codes and even sentience. Whoa. But before we go full-on sci-fi, let's talk real world for a minute. What about AI in jobs? A lot of people are worried about that.
Yeah, for sure. Big technological shifts always cause, some growing pains. Look at the Industrial Revolution. It totally changed how we lived and worked. Not everyone benefited right away.
Right, but new industries popped up. People found different jobs. So are you saying AI could be like that, a catalyst for change?
Totally. The key is to be proactive, to adapt. We need the skills to thrive in a world where AI is, well, everywhere.
What kind of skills? Can we even compete with these super smart machines?
I think it's less about competing with AI and more about working with it. Focus on where humans still have an edge. Creativity, critical thinking, problem solving, that emotional intelligence stuff. AI is still catching up in those areas.
So it's not about learning to code, but more about those uniquely human skills AI hasn't quite mastered yet.
Exactly. And it's not just about individuals adapting. Businesses and governments need to create policies, education programs. We need to support this transition.
It feels like we should be thinking about the ethics of all this right now, before it's too late. If we're creating machines that might think and feel, do they get the same rights as us?
Those are some big questions for sure. It's like we're writing the rule book for a whole new species, but this species, we created it.
Both super exciting and kind of terrifying. It feels like we're on the edge of something huge, and we don't even know what it is yet.
And that's what makes it so fascinating, right? This deep dive has just scratched the surface.
It's been an amazing ride. Thanks for guiding us through this crazy world of AI.
My pleasure. Hope you keep exploring.
So to our listener, we hope you have a better grasp on AI now, how it works, the good and the bad, and the big questions it raises about, well, what it means to be human. Keep learning, keep questioning, and keep diving deep. That's what it's all about.